kind of finding my distance. Against the lefty, you're not sure if you're supposed to close in or, wait for the ball to come to you and the spin to kind of die.
Felix Auger-Aliassime is back in the round of 16 in Cincinnati, and for a player who has made this stage a habit, 5 times in his last 6 visits to this tournament, that consistency says everything about how comfortable he's become on these courts. His win over Juan Manuel Cerundolo, 7-5, 6-1, wasn't just clean on the scoreboard. It was a masterclass in patience against a style of tennis that most modern players rarely see anymore. Sitting down afterward, still buzzing from the performance, Felix broke down exactly what shifted between the 2 sets. It wasn't power. It wasn't a tactical overhaul. It was his return game holding firm all match, paired with something more subtle, distance, and timing against a lefty. Early on, he admitted he was still figuring out whether to step in and attack the ball or sit back and let the spin die before committing. That hesitation, even a small one, can cost a set. But once he locked into his rhythm, once his split step found its timing, the second set opened up. He described it as finally being free in the rallies, and you could hear the relief in his voice. And there's a psychological layer, too. He pointed out that breaking his opponent in that very first game seemed to chip away at Cerundolo's belief, a crack that only widened as the match wore on. What makes Cerundolo such a tricky matchup isn't raw power. It's the opposite. He floods the court with spin, gives opponents very little pace to work with, and forces them to manufacture their own offense. Felix compared it directly to his previous match against a big hitter like Tsitsipas, where the ball comes at you boom, 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 and there's barely time to think. Against Cerundolo, the ball hangs in the air longer, which sounds like an advantage, but it isn't automatically one. More time means more responsibility to generate your own pace, and that's a different kind of physical and mental demand. Adding a personal note to the story, Felix revealed he'd actually lost to Cerundolo before, so this win carried a bit of redemption with it, a score quietly settled. The conversation then drifted somewhere unexpected, his racket strings. Anyone watching Felix play notices the smoothness, the classic, almost old-school technique, the way he glides into the net. So, naturally, the question came up about natural gut strings, a callback to how players used to string their rackets years ago. Felix laughed and admitted he actually started that way as a junior, which is the reverse of how most young players begin today. Back then, a coach wanted him playing with gut to protect his arm and develop feel, since synthetic strings can be rough on a developing body. But as he got older and stronger, the ball started flying on him, and he felt like he was losing control. So since 2019, he's moved away from gut entirely. Still, he respects that plenty of players on tour continue to use it, each finding their own personal formula for control and feel. From there, talk turned to the atmosphere in Cincinnati, a topic that's dominated headlines all week because of the heat. But this particular night, Felix said, was close to perfect. The kind of evening that reminds him of playing with family and friends growing up, a late sunset, comfortable air, not too humid, not too hot. Ideal conditions for both players and fans. He couldn't resist a light-hearted jab either, joking that Frances Tiafoe was probably still going through a pile of shirts that set, a nod to Tiafoe's well-known habit of stripping his shirt off mid-match at the smallest excuse. With Learner Tien and Tiafoe still playing on court, the conversation naturally shifted to a preview of that matchup, and Felix slipped comfortably into an analyst role. He broke down Learner Tien's game with real detail, not the most powerful player out there, but someone whose ball control might be among the best on tour. The kind of player who seems to guide the ball rather than simply strike it, precise and composed in his movement. Tiafoe, on the other hand, brings raw power, and if he can dictate points and punish any lapse from Tien, the edge tips in his favor. Felix called it a genuine 50-50 battle, noting that Tien is putting together arguably his best season yet, while Tiafoe, in his eyes, is playing at a level that doesn't fully show up in his current ranking. The mood lightened even more when the topic turned to his upcoming U.S. Open mixed doubles pairing with Alex Eala, whose rise in popularity has completely reshaped how fans engage with the sport. Felix credited shared team connections for bringing the partnership together and admitted, with a grin, that this will be his first real taste of what fans call the Yald effect. Despite being the older, more experienced player, he's fully aware she's the one pulling the crowd. He seemed genuinely excited by the dynamic, joking about the role reversal it creates. On the subject of balancing sponsor appearances, media commitments, and the demands leading into a Grand Slam, Felix offered a thoughtful perspective. Rather than seeing those obligations as distractions, he explained that mixed doubles and the surrounding buzz actually help him stay locked into a competitive mindset. There's a clear difference, he said, between the relaxed rhythm of training and appearances versus the intensity of stepping onto a court where someone is actively trying to beat you. Staying connected to that competitive edge during a lower-pressure event like mixed doubles, he believes, will only sharpen him heading into the tougher rounds ahead. As for New York itself, Felix made it clear his focus hasn't shifted yet. There's still tennis to be played in Cincinnati, he said, and he's not rushing ahead mentally. Every year, he looks forward to this stretch of the summer, and he wants to enjoy it fully before turning the page toward the U.S. Open. The conversation wrapped with a bit of playful banter about pop culture, talk of Harry Styles concerts, and bucket lists before Felix headed off with a lighthearted suggestion that he could just as easily call his own matches from the broadcast booth. It was a fitting close to an interview that captured not just his tennis IQ, but his personality, sharp, self-aware, and clearly enjoying this run through Cincinnati as he sets his sights on the next round.